Hi everyone, in this video we're going to approximate irrational numbers. So the objectives are to determine between which two whole numbers a non-perfect square is. So all the numbers that we're going to look at today are non-perfect squares, so they're irrational. And I can estimate a square root that is not a perfect square. Since non-perfect square roots are long decimal numbers, we can use what we know about perfect square roots to approximate the value of a non-perfect square. And approximate means the number will be close to the actual answer. So it won't be the real actual answer, but it'll be close to it. So this way we can approximate these numbers without using like a calculator or something. We can do it ourselves. So let's start with this number line. And before we approximate a number, I want to place some square roots on this number line so that it'll help us approximate it. You'll see. So these are all of our numbers. So the square root of 1 equals 1. So this is where the square root of 1 would go. 2 squared is 4. So the square root of 4 equals 2. And make sure you're copying this on your paper too. Oh, sorry, I have it untyped. Okay. Square root of 9 equals 3 because 3 squared is 9. 4 squared is 16, so the square root of 16. 5 squared is 25, so the square root of 25 is 5. 6 squared is 36. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. So make sure you copy these down. Okay. So the problem we're going to do is, where would you put the square root of 6? So if the square root of 4 is right here, and the square root of 9 is here, the square root of 6 will be somewhere in between these two. Now the whole number for the square root of 4 is 2, and the whole number for the square root of 9 is 3. So the square root of 6 must be somewhere in between the square root of 2 and 2 and 3. So the square root of 6 is between 2 and 3. So this is one way that you can estimate a square root, non-perfect square root. You can see which two whole numbers is it between. So in this case, the square root of 6 is between 2 and 3. This is one way you can do it, using a number line. Another way you can do it is kind of like a flow chart. So in this one, we're going to not only pick between which two whole numbers it's between, but also estimate. So here's the square root of 8. So which two square roots, perfect square roots, is 8 between? Well, first it's 4 is on the other side, so the square root of 4 is on one side of 8. And the square root of 9 is on the other side of the square root of 8. So the square root of 8 will go somewhere in between the square root of 4 and the square root of 9. So what is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. And the square root of 9 is 3. So this means the square root of 8 is somewhere in between 2 and 3. So it's 2 point something. Now, how do we know what it's closer to? Is it closer to 2 or is it closer to 3? Well, 8 is closer to 9, so the square root of 8 will be much closer to the square root of 9. Maybe it's not exactly 2.9. I would go maybe like 2.8. 2.8, because it's a little bit closer. So that's kind of how you estimate it out, which is it going to be closer to. So let's try this one together. Approximate the value of the square root of 28 to the nearest tenth. And before we do this one, if you're listening to this right now and you're paying attention, I want you to come up and find Miss Ewell, me, and ask for a sticker. And I'll give you a sticker. Okay. Let's approximate the value of the square root of 28 to the nearest tenth. So we're going to do this one all out. So we're going to start with the square root of 28. Look for which two perfect square roots are near that. So maybe get your list of perfect square roots out. I know that the square root of 25 is pretty close to that. And after 25 is 6 times 6, and 6 times 6 is 36, so the square root of 36. So 28 is between 25 and 36, so it's somewhere in between there. The square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of 36 is 6. So this one is going to be somewhere in between 5 and 6. 28 is closer to 25. So I think that the square root of 28 will be a little bit closer to 5. 5.5 is the middle of 5 and 6. So I'm going to make it maybe a little bit less than 5.5 because it's, kind of closer to 25. So I'm going to go like 5.3. We're just approximating. We're not trying to get the exact perfect answer. We're just approximating what it's closest to. So in this case, 5.3. All right, that's all. This is pretty tricky, but we will work through it and get it.